So thank you so much, Michael, for that beautiful introduction and just for being an amazing mentor and friend over the years. I can't imagine knowing uh, many poets better than you, better people than you. So it's truly an honor and a pleasure. Anytime I get to spend any time in a room with you. And I'm just so grateful to be here tonight in this room of poems and to read with fellow poets Laura and Jessica and Mihaela, all who are incredibly talented. It's really something special. And I'm grateful to Ron for bringing us, and to Michael for bringing us together and for his amazing support of our work. I think especially for me and for I'll read one of the poems that that Alaska Quarterly published. But it was I think when you get a poem taken in a journal and you're working on a manuscript and you're thinking about the way your work is coming together, the validation that you get from these editors in the journals is something that really energizes and grounds you in your work and in your vision and helps you to keep moving in the process and trust your voice. And so I just want to say thank you for that because yeah, right. Because it is a real service, I think, to we writers. And it's quite amazing and generous. So I'm going to read. My newly bifocaled self is going to try and see and read. I'll read a few poems from my newest book, Tributary, and then I thought maybe I would sound out a very brand new poem at the end if people feel like that's a good idea, maybe. Okay, all right, let's do it. We'll try it. We'll see how that goes. And I think in terms of this book, Tributary, it is really very different for me. I played a lot with form and space. And, I think it's the book is a lot in conversation with patriarchy and fundamental Christianity, two entities that I had great dealings with in my upbringing, and it also these poems sort of grew out of trying to create conversation, I think, between my father and my brother, who was ostracized from our family because he converted to Islam. So I want to begin with a poem. It's called His Name Everywhere. And in the book, his name is redacted, but I'll read it. His name everywhere. These rooms I'm in, 5 at once. My voice in the aluminum ductwork. Ryan, Ryan, Ryan. This is my father's house, ours, but we don't say Ryan, Ryan, Ryan to the brother who has gone missing. And in his absence is the sound of his name everywhere. I open the window to let him out, my voice a surge that carries through the halls of refusing the brother. I practice for his absence. I practice for erasure. Ryan, Ryan, Ryan. His name courses through the house on the molecular dust, sinking in waves to the hardwood. I open the window and try to breathe. Let his name out. Let me out. No more of the secret. This river deafening us. So these poems kind of move through and in and have conversations through the entity of a river. So the river kind of, as its name Tributary, it's called Tributary. It's the river appears frequently, sometimes a speaker, sometimes a guest. Okay. Here's the list. All right. Some dark organ willing. Pardon me. When you strapped a fresh steer to the branch, which was the bar of their swing set, the girls swung anyway, arched thighs around to tap toes on the other side of its body. Between them, a long gash in the hairy form left ajar for bloodletting, for words, and for twig-light. How many times did I ascend your porch stair and let my finger do the work of pushing a button bell? My body before you, not quite what you'd expected, but what you'd accepted already as one you wouldn't love. Perhaps somewhere within you I'm also hanging, my feet neatly folded beneath the mealy rope. Perhaps one comes undone and I dangle there in my candura, a mess you mind but cannot accept the reading of. Perhaps as the red deer whose hooves once grazed these indigenous grasses that shimmy in the crisp zephyrs billowing over the green plain which croons like insects against it, as the deer sways from its bundled legs, whose body grew longer over its days with your daughter's pumping legs in perfect communion, peering for a heart or a liver or some dark organ willing to be an offering. I am the bright wound, open and festering, a voice beckoning you to the renderer, a voice undressing down to itself, stumbling naked of this tree, this fence, this greed-grown yard. Thank you all so much for being here. I know I said that already, but I just feel like saying it again. I would like to read. Michael might be sick of it, but I'm gonna read it anyway. But there's a poem in here actually that's dedicated to Michael, and it's after or influenced by a poem of his called "Horse," which is one of my favorite poems of his, of the many of my favorite poems of his, and it's called "Baptism with a Pond in It." There are two different baptism poems in it, but this is the other one. Baptism with a pond in it. I saw my sister resurrect, wet and shining, and applauded and spun to sprint up the hill from the pond. But the water, sweet, dumb, and warm still, and the preacher's thumb and finger clamped, pushed my body into what was made to bring me closer to. Body of water apportioning, where the only water roaring was quick to suffocate my face. I closed my eyes and searched for the river, and there only could place my father drunk, unspooling me like a carpet into the water, his arm a firm cane, forcing the body in. But how I wanted to stay below, void of sound and drum-swole cello, void of white bright, the body's buoyant bellow, an effervescing halo, an ocean swelling the capillary and marrow. What was the sin? For what to atone as a child in drenched Sunday robes who wept? The hope of transformation, and not for any joy nor salvation, dear Father. What arrives suddenly in a dirty moat, a preacher's sodden bay? Even the fish won't take up residence. Let us pray. What's left in the water will not wash away. Thank you. All right. I want to read Sick Horse, which also has a companion poem, Given Horse, but this is the one that Ron took, one of the ones for the journal. Sick Horse. I feel like I just have to have my legs under me when I read this poem. It's serious, from the belly. Okay. Sick Horse. Girls, you can bring that horse to water. Sick horse, desert mouth horse, horse painted to slick sedimentary rock. Bring that horse to water. You can, girl. Horse bit grinding, horse you really gotta drag. Red stencil, skinny ass horse. That horse to water, bring him. Girls, when it lie down there, belly on the bank, don't forget to praise, to stroke the hoary mane, and coo at him, sweetly bray his name. Don't forget to praise who made this horse, and made for you the walk, and made for you the bridle, and made for you the cracked earth in want of water, and made for you this river, and made for you this labor. Yank on that bridle, bitches, yank it. Yank that horse and force its head down. Prove you cannot make the man drink. All right. Let's do the new one. It's a little long. It's a little long and I'm a little scared of it, but I'm going to try it. It has notes on it. So you always know it's a work in progress that way, right? All right, and the end is I'm still thinking about it. So anyway, we'll try it. Okay, so it's a ode to Darnell, ode to the crocus, my favorite flower. To the early morning charge nurse, Darnell, who escorted me into the operating theater, where in my cornflower blue gown and goose-pimpled skin, beneath a bleach-slubbed cotton robe, I was laid, pugnaciously sobbing, beneath the ignited, rotund surgical beams that blared through to my core where they would cut into and discover, I swear, the air laden with the way the scalpel approaches, flashing. You are the bright stamen of a crocus on that late March morning on a Sunday while I walk my sister-in-law's dog with her and discuss our marriages. A thing I did not consider once before undergoing the knife, except that the knife and going under might result in my death or in the discovery that I might later die. And I have no will, said the doctor. He thought it could be true, and after a week of trying to process his words, disbelieving them even, I finally was able to ricochet cancer against my spouse and absorb the return of its flail. It was just a few hours before we were to leave for the city, and our son had mercifully, finally, fallen asleep. And we held hands limply. And he said, "We don't fuck with cancer." And I conceded his point. They could just take whatever was the woman from me. But I insist this poem is about my love for crocus and Darnell, and the way the flower insists upon spring, the way he clutched my reluctant arm, as if come hell or high water, I would break through the rhyme ice, the word for which is more precise in less empirical languages, the no matter the weather, rushing the earth into and out of a season. It's the no matter whatness about the flower that I've always loved and that I felt in his embrace. And if you ask me what my favorite flower is, I might say a blue rose because of the love I have for the first thing my spouse ever gave me. And what it means so many years later, the petals unworldly and ethereal and spellbindingly impossible. But I've never seen one rise in the wild, as does the crocus that makes my cheeks flush with its ivory velvet in delicate contrast with the blackened slush kicked across it. The cardamom stamen brilliant against our strict winter sun, how it carries the deep glow of daylight within its cup, unfurling to clutch the sun's imperceptible emissions and guide them into the depth of its roots, and the impossibility of its presence each spring, the impossibility of chlorophyll when I encounter the brilliant blossoms fully flowered in their stocky clump. Crocus, you are tender and blooming, like the sickened ovary the oncologist plucked and bagged from my abdomen while I dreamed I was still sobbing on the matchstick thin steel table, while the other was freed from a sticky web of adhesions spun by endometriosis's relentless, gangly nest that's ruled my body since its first menstruation. You are the uterus clipped from its stem, leaving behind the network of root what led to. Flowering in the vase or sliced lengthwise and flash frozen, your section beneath the microscope of a pathologist scanned for wilt and waste, a cluster of majesty brimming from the ground, and I tell whoever I am with, even if it's just myself, of my love for crocuses. And then days after, crocuses, and days and days and days, and then the year after in anticipation, their arrival and the scans, and then another spring and another. The luscious purple, not even anything like that of my insides, as if I could know, but saintly and smooth and crisp and purposeful, silk on my fingertips, the sturdiness of them, the charm, Darnell, how I loved you for simply squeezing my hand. I will never forget it. For how you nearly carried my drugged body down the hospital corridor, which seemed like the longest and the shortest walk. The impossibility of the crocus, the impossibility of cancer, the impossibility of your kindness. The arrival sudden and clear, like danger, and also maybe something like conditionless love. Thank you. Thank you so much.